Right now, an American family is planning a funeral. A teenager took a single pill they thought was a standard prescription painkiller. It wasn't. It was a counterfeit pill laced with fentanyl, and it stopped their heart before they even hit the floor. This exact nightmare plays out over 100,000 times a year in the United States. But to understand why this is happening, why morgues from Ohio to California are running out of space, you have to look far beyond the American suburbs. You have to look deep into the mountains of Jalisco, Mexico. There, you won't find the ghost of Pablo Escobar, and you won't find El Chapo. You will find a man who makes them look like relics of the past. A former police officer who built the most heavily armed, technologically advanced, and violently ruthless cartel in human history. His name is Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes. The criminal underworld simply calls him El Mencho. And his syndicate, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, isn't just a drug trafficking organization. It is a paramilitary empire waging a global war. Mencho's story does not begin in a luxury mansion. It begins in the dirt. Born into crushing poverty in the rural state of Michoacan, he dropped out of school at 14 to guard avocado farms. But those farms were a front for marijuana fields. Like countless others, he chased the American dream, crossing the border into the United States illegally. He sold drugs on the streets of California, was arrested, and was eventually deported. For most low-level dealers, the story ends there. For Mencho, it was an education. He realized that street-level dealing was a fragile, losing game. When he returned to Mexico, he didn't join a street gang. He joined the police. Wearing a badge in the state of Jalisco gave him the ultimate inside look at the machinery of the state. He wasn't enforcing the law. He was studying it to break it perfectly. He learned police patrol routes, secured radio frequencies, and most importantly, he learned exactly which politicians, judges, and military commanders had a price. He eventually left the force, taking his tactical knowledge straight to the Milenio Cartel, who were allies of the infamous Sinaloa Cartel. But the criminal underworld is volatile. In 2010, the Milenio Cartel fractured after its top leader was taken down. A massive power vacuum opened. In the cartel world, a vacuum is always filled with blood. Mencho led a heavily armed splinter group called Los Torcidos, the Twisted Ones. His strategy was simple and terrifying. Absolute, overwhelming violence. He did not negotiate. He exterminated. He wiped out rival factions with a cold, military precision that he had learned on the police force. From the ashes of that civil war, Mencho declared the birth of a new, apex predator, the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, or CJNG. CJNG was completely different from anything the DEA or the Mexican government had ever seen. They were not just street thugs with rifles. They operated as a private army. Mencho began recruiting former elite military operatives, including deserters from Special Forces units. He equipped them with military-grade body armor, .50 caliber sniper rifles, capable of piercing engine blocks, and built homemade, heavily armored assault vehicles known as Monstruos. For the people of Mexico, the rise of CJNG brought an era of unimaginable terror. The cartel didn't just kill their enemies, they weaponized psychological warfare. Entire villages in Michoacan and Jalisco turned into ghost towns as residents fled for their lives. Local farmers and business owners who refused to pay exorbitant extortion fees were murdered. Their businesses burned to the ground. CJNG pioneered the use of social media for mass terror, uploading cinematic, high-definition videos of heavily armed convoys and horrific mass executions. They left dismembered bodies hanging from highway overpasses in broad daylight, accompanied by massive banners claiming the territory. The Mexican citizens were trapped in a daily crossfire between a corrupt state and a ruthless private military. They lost their homes, their businesses, and their children to the crossfire of Mencho's ambition. The turning point that shocked the world happened in May 2015. The Mexican government launched Operation Jalisco to finally capture Mencho. Military helicopters swooped into his territory for a raid. But Mencho was ready. His forces didn't run and hide. They stood their ground and fired rocket-propelled grenades at a military Cougar helicopter, shooting it out of the sky. 8 soldiers and a police officer died in the crash. Immediately after, the cartel set up dozens of flaming blockades across the state, burning buses and cars, completely paralyzing the entire region. The message to the Mexican president was clear. CJNG could go to war with the national military and win. But Mencho's true genius wasn't just tactical. It was purely economic. While older cartels fought bloody, endless wars over cocaine routes stretching from Colombia, Mencho looked at the future of the market. He saw synthetic drugs, methamphetamine, and fentanyl. Unlike cocaine, which requires vast fields, specific climates, and months of harvesting, fentanyl can be cooked in a basement lab in a matter of days. Mencho established a massive streamlined global supply chain. CJNG imported precursor chemicals directly from underground laboratories in China and India. They shipped these chemicals into the ports of Mexico, bribing customs officials to look the other way, and transported them to clandestine superlabs hidden deep in the mountains. There, chemists cooked millions of counterfeit pills. They pressed them to look exactly like standard pharmacy medications, OxyContin, Adderall, Xanax, but laced them with lethal doses of fentanyl. This shift completely changed the world, and it devastated the United States. Fentanyl is up to 50 times stronger than heroin. An amount the size of a few grains of sand is enough to kill a grown adult. CJNG flooded the American market with this poison, deliberately hiding it in drugs used by college students, stressed workers, and teenagers. The result is the worst public health crisis in U.S. history. Paramedics across America suffer from severe burnout, responding to endless calls of young people turning blue in their bedrooms. Families are shattered. The pain, the grief, and the countless funerals in the United States became the direct profit margin for CJNG. Mencho turned human addiction into a weapon of mass destruction, and America was ground zero. Today, Mencho commands an army of thousands. His cartel operates in over 20 Mexican states and has a deep logistical presence on every continent except Antarctica. He is a multi-billionaire. Yet, he lives his life like a hunted ghost. The U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration is offering a $10 million reward for information leading to his capture. He reportedly suffers from severe kidney disease, forcing his men to build private hidden hospitals deep in the mountains to keep him alive through dialysis, while he constantly moves locations to avoid satellite tracking and drone strikes. El Chapo loved the spotlight. He loved the fame, the interviews, and the notoriety. That ego was his downfall. Mencho is terrifying exactly because he stays in the shadows. He doesn't want to be a celebrity. He just wants the power. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel stands today as the ultimate modern criminal syndicate. Ruthless, technologically advanced, and globally connected. As long as the demand for synthetic escapes exists, Mencho's machine will keep turning, fueled by the blood of innocent Mexicans and the profound grief of American families. The war isn't coming. The war is already here.